You finally sit down with a cup of tea and your pocket buzzes. A pension app wants you to check an urgent update. A family group chat lights up with 15 messages you never asked to read. Within 30 seconds, the quiet you just earned is gone. The number that stopped me the first time I heard it is this. The average person loses 2.5 hours a day to distraction from a phone, and that constant switching keeps stress hormones raised enough to put your body in a low-grade version of fight or flight, over and over, all day long. If you're 55 or older and trying to actually enjoy retirement, that isn't background noise. That's the thing quietly eating into the years you worked 40 years to earn. You've probably felt the pull to go back to paper, a proper diary, a landline that just rings when someone calls, and nothing else. If you have, you're not being old-fashioned. You're noticing something real, and you're not the only one. The part the finance industry doesn't say out loud is simpler than you'd think. They push you onto an app because it's cheaper for them, not because it makes you a better investor. Staying glued to your portfolio during a wobble in the market is one of the easiest ways to turn a normal dip into a £10,000 mistake, purely because you watched the number fall and panicked. So today I want to show you why the usual digital detox advice, built for a 25-year-old who can vanish to a cabin for 2 weeks, doesn't work for people our age. I'll walk you through a 15-minute-a-day reset that protects your peace without you missing a single NHS appointment or a call from your grandkids. Done properly, it can also save you close to £300 a year that quietly disappears into subscriptions and gadgets you never really wanted. There's a legal detail most people your age have never been told. Under the Equality Act 2010, banks carry a duty to make reasonable adjustments for customers who need them, and that covers plenty of very ordinary things that come with getting older, failing eyesight, trouble remembering a new password, a hand that shakes too much to tap a tiny screen reliably. In practice, it means you can ask for paper statements or phone banking, and a bank that just says everyone uses the app now isn't meeting its obligation to you. Most people never ask. Instead, they quietly buy a £1,000 smartphone just to check a balance they used to see for free on a paper slip. I've watched this happen to friends of mine, standing at a card machine looking almost embarrassed, because the branch on the high street closed years ago and nobody ever showed them another way to manage. There's a line worth knowing about. Call it the identity protection line. It's the point where a tool stops simply helping you and starts demanding pieces of you, your fingerprint, your face, your live location, just so it will open. Cross that line often enough, and you stop feeling like the customer. You start feeling like the product being managed. The reason the app keeps pushing you to tap instead of think comes down to something researchers call the pain of paying. That's the small flinch you feel when you hand over cash and watch it actually leave your hand. Tap a phone against a reader, and your brain barely registers that the money has gone at all. That gap isn't just a feeling, it shows up in the numbers. A study from the University of North Carolina's Keenan-Flagler Business School found that people spend 9.4% more on average once they move from cash to contactless and app-based payment. Put that against the full new state pension, £12,547 a year, and you're looking at close to £1,200 a year, vanishing into purchases you'd have thought twice about if you'd had to count out the notes by hand. The trade-off is subtle. Every tap saves you a few seconds of counting and costs you a little of your own sense of what things actually cost. Do that for a few years running, and it stops being a feeling and starts being a real gap in your savings, one you never consciously chose. If any of this sounds familiar, and you're tired of feeling like a guest in your own retirement, that's exactly what this channel is built around, strategies that work for our generation, not the version built for someone 30 years younger than us. But here's the catch, nobody likes to admit. You can't just switch the phone off and walk away, not when your grandchildren live their whole social life on WhatsApp, and a missed message feels like missing them. The framework I give people who feel this way takes exactly 15 minutes a day, split into 2 short windows. The first window is 10 minutes in the morning, before you touch a screen at all. You write down 3 things on paper, no more, the things that actually need to happen today. Not an inbox, not a notification list somebody else wrote for you, just 3 lines in your own handwriting. Once those 3 are done, or at least written, you're allowed to open your phone, but not before. The second window is 5 minutes in the evening, and it borrows from an old Japanese habit called kakebo. You physically write down the single largest thing you spent money on that day. Not every coffee, not every small purchase, just the one number that mattered, whether that's a car insurance renewal or a birthday gift for a grandchild. It takes less time than boiling a kettle. I used to think I needed the latest app to keep on top of my iSare. I spent 3 months tagging every coffee and bus fare, and at the end of it I hadn't saved a single extra pound. I just spent more hours staring at my phone. I went back to a plain paper ledger, and the odd thing is, my money anxiety dropped almost straight away. There's a real reason writing works better than typing here. Researchers at the University of Tokyo found that writing by hand triggers more activity in the parts of the brain tied to memory than typing the same words on a tablet or phone does, roughly a 25% advantage in recall. That's not a small effect. It means the figure you wrote down for the energy bill actually sticks in your head, where the one you thumbed into an app tends to slide straight back out an hour later. Keeping the morning list to 3 items matters more than it sounds. Give yourself 10 things to do, and your brain spends its energy deciding what to ignore. Give yourself 3, and you actually do them. 15 minutes on paper sounds small, but weigh it against what it replaces. Most people who check one notification lose 45 minutes to scrolling without ever deciding to. So the real trade is 15 minutes of intention against 45 minutes you never chose to spend. Stretch that over a week, and you get back hours of your retirement, simply by writing first and scrolling second, if you scroll at all. There's a small extra step worth adding once the habit settles in. Keep the paper list and the paper ledger in the same place every single day. A kitchen drawer, a spot by the kettle, somewhere your hand goes to automatically. The moment you have to hunt for it, you'll reach for the phone instead, and the whole habit quietly falls apart. None of this replaces a proper look at your mortgage payment or your pension statement once a quarter. It simply stops your phone from being the thing that decides when you think about money, instead of you deciding for yourself. There's one more piece of this worth knowing, something I call the digital sunset. It has less to do with money and more to do with how you actually sleep, and it might do more for you than anything you'd find in a chemist. Rewind to 2008, during the financial crisis. Most people our age got their news once a day, from a newspaper or the 6 o'clock bulletin. You worried for an hour, then you got on with your evening, made dinner and slept reasonably well, because there was nothing more you could do about it until the next bulletin came round. Compare that to now, when a breaking news alert can land on your lock screen every 15 minutes, each one demanding a reaction before you've even finished your tea. Your grandparents' generation absorbed 1 dose of bad news a day. Yours is being asked to absorb it every quarter of an hour, with no extra income or extra pension pot to help you carry it. The PLSA, the body that tracks what retirement actually costs in Britain, puts the figure for a comfortable single retirement at £45,400 a year. That's not a luxury number. It covers ordinary things, a car, a couple of holidays, being able to say yes when a grandchild wants to go somewhere. For most people, reaching that number is already a stretch, without anything else added to the pressure. Constant noise makes it feel like an impossible one. Every time your phone shows you somebody else's cruise or a stranger's new kitchen, your brain quietly runs a comparison you never agreed to make. Psychologists call this relative deprivation, the sense that you're falling behind, based on seeing only the best moments of people you don't actually know. It has nothing to do with your council tax bill or your actual pension pot, and everything to do with what you happen to see in the last 10 minutes. Step away from the feed, and that comparison mostly disappears. You go back to measuring your retirement against your own numbers, your own life, not somebody's holiday photos from a country you've never been to. That alone removes a good deal of the anxiety that has nothing to do with your actual finances and everything to do with how the feed is built to keep you scrolling. But quiet only works when life stays quiet. What happens to that sense of calm the moment something real goes wrong, a stock market fall, or a health scare that lands out of nowhere? Picture the FTSE 100 dropping 10% over a matter of weeks, which happens more often than people like to admit, roughly once every couple of years if you look back over the decades. Two people watch it happen, both with broadly the same pension pot, and they end up in completely different places by the time it's over. The first person has everything on their phone. 5 push notifications land before lunch, each one a little more dramatic than the last. They open the investing app 10 times that day, watching the loss update in real time, red number after red number. By the third day, the fear wins, and they sell, locking in a loss that was only ever a loss on paper until they made it real. The second person checks their portfolio once a quarter, from a paper statement that arrives in the post. They don't see the daily swings at all, and they don't know the market fell 10% until weeks after it happened, by which point it may already have recovered a good chunk of the drop. Instead, they open a physical folder, the kind of thing you might call your retirement Bible, where the plan they wrote down when they were calm still says exactly what it said last quarter. So they do nothing, which, in a downturn, is usually the right move, even though it can feel like the wrong one at the time. Vanguard has studied this gap for years, and their research on investor behavior shows that people who trade actively, often reacting to exactly this kind of digitally triggered panic, underperform people who simply buy and hold by around 1.5% a year on average. That sounds small until you stretch it over a 20-year retirement. Over that stretch, 1.5% a year is the difference between a pot that lasts as long as you need it to, and one that runs dry a few years before you'd hoped. None of this means ignoring your money completely, and it isn't about pretending a downturn didn't happen. It means choosing when you look, instead of letting a notification choose for you, and knowing that a paper statement once a quarter tells you everything you actually need to know to stay steady. Which raises the obvious question. If you're not checking an app 10 times a day, how do you actually deal with the NHS or your own bank without one? This is how it works in practice. In 3 steps you can start this week, none of which need an app, a subscription, or anyone else's help. Step 1 is the notification cull. Go into your settings and turn off every push alert except phone calls and text messages. Everything else, the banking app pings, the breaking news alerts, the social updates, can wait until you choose to look at them, not the other way around. Step 2 is bringing back the landline. Most UK banks still let you use a voice call for 2-factor authentication instead of a text to a smartphone, which means your landline can do that job just as well as the £1,000 device in your pocket. If your bank hasn't offered you that option, ask for it directly. Most will set it up in a single call, and it's usually free. Step 3 is building a paper trail. Call your pension provider and call your energy or water company and ask for paper billing. Most providers will set it up free of charge if you simply ask, and it usually takes 1 phone call to arrange for good. Do the same with your mortgage lender if you have one, since paper statements there tend to matter most of all, given how large that single monthly payment usually is compared to everything else you spend. Do all 3, and something interesting tends to happen. You'll feel a flicker of guilt the first time you don't reply to a text within the hour, as though you've let somebody down by taking your time, or the first time a paper statement lands and you almost don't trust it because there's no push alert attached to it. Stay with that feeling for a moment, because there's a reason it matters more than you'd think. It's fine to feel a bit out of step with how everyone else seems to live now. In a world where most people check their phone over 100 times a day, being out of touch with that habit isn't a failure. It's closer to a genuine advantage for your own mental health. There's a difference between not being able to use technology and choosing not to be run by it. You know how the apps work, You grew up watching the entire industry get built. You've simply decided your attention is worth more than the constant pull toward it. That's not falling behind. That's being intentional with the years you have left to enjoy. And there's nothing embarrassing about that choice, whatever anyone younger says about it. I still keep a physical address book, the kind with a pencil and a tab for each letter. It's slower to find a number than typing 3 letters into a phone, I'll grant you that. But it never needs a password, it never fails to sync, and the battery never dies right when I want to ring my brother. It has sat on the same shelf for years, and it will still be there tomorrow, which is more than I can say for most of the apps I've tried and quietly abandoned. So here's where this leaves you. You have a genuine right to ask for paper statements and phone banking when digital-only options don't work for you. You have a 15-minute hybrid schedule, 10 minutes of writing in the morning, 5 minutes of writing at night that cost you almost nothing and gives back far more than it takes. And you know the number now, that extra 9.4% quietly spent every time convenience replaces counting. None of this is about proving you can still keep up with every app your grandchildren use. Retirement was never meant to be measured that way, and nobody is grading you on it. It's about having the time, finally, to look up from a screen and actually be present in the life you spent decades building. If any of this felt like it was speaking directly to you, subscribe to Arthur's UK Retirement Guide. We build these strategies for people our age, not for whoever the app happened to be designed for, and we'll keep doing exactly that. You spent 40 years working toward this time. Don't hand it back to a smartphone for the sake of one more notification you didn't need to see the moment it arrived.